when you ask people what they know ChatGPT, not many people are using it. But then if you ask them what Midjourney is or image generators, they don't. That might be 1 out of 100. And then if you ask them about video generators, it's 0 point whatever percentage. So it's a huge gap.
AI is being used for scripting, for shooting and producing movies.
AI is being used for everything.
Hollywood production is being transformed by artificial intelligence.
Hello and welcome to the Curious Refuge Podcast. I am super excited for this week's episode. We have one of my personal favorite AI influencers here to chat about the latest tools and technology and really how AI has a place in the world of digital marketing and creativity. Alie Jules is an AI educator, speaker, experimenter, and news resource. She's also an all-around incredible human being, and she has a background in jumping out of airplanes. So we are going to talk about some super nerdy concepts and also some very practical tips and techniques that you need to know when working with clients in a marketing context. So if you use AI to make money as a freelancer, you are definitely not going to want to miss this episode. Alie runs Saana, which is an intelligent marketing agency, and she uses AI to serve her clients in addition to having one of the best Twitter accounts out there. So thank you so much for hopping on the podcast, Alie.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
What did you see the ChatGPT 5 news that came out like yesterday?
I saw plethora of Sam Altman news, so we'll see. But apparently we are at the dumbest time right now, right? So it's only going to get better from here.
What's the news, Caleb?
Yeah. The idea is basically that ChatGPT 5 is coming very soon, and then that the leap from 3 to 4 will basically be similar to the leap from 4 to 5. So just much better at conversations, which is exciting.
100%. I use ChatGPT all the time and Claude, and I go back and forth. And the reason why I keep going back to ChatGPT is because I love the voice feature. So I'm always doing it on my phone, and I go back and forth because I do a lot of brainstorming type of things. So I can definitely see where, there is a lot of improvement. But I mean, it's still great because I can quickly just, do like a brain dump, and then, whether I pick something off it or not, it still helps me clear my brain and kind of organize my thoughts. So I'm all for it. I mean, who knows where it'll go, but I mean, again, I think it can only go up from here. So
we can basically just have this podcast with ChatGPT. That's what you're saying.
Literally. Well, that's it. Did you see that somebody did the job interview yesterday with their clone, right? So we could all just be clones here, right? And we're not even here, really. So.
We're on the beach, just hanging out.
Oh, that would be so nice.
So what's an example of something that you go to just brain dump and use chat for?
It could be any type of, let's say I'm considering doing something, let's say it's a newsletter, for example, just something, that I have been considering. Well, I have a newsletter, but I have been considering different avenues. So I can just throw the idea, and I specifically prompted to be more conversational and not give me that, okay, number 1, number 2, number 3. And I'm saying, I just want to have like a brief conversation, short answers. And if you're going to ask me questions, and I prompted to ask me questions to kind of give me more ideas or what to think about, what to perhaps exclude and so forth. So I ask for one question at a time, because otherwise it's going to ask me 5 questions. And especially on voice, I cannot, that's too much for me to process. So, and then it gives me typically ideas of, if I need to make any adjustments or anything like that. So I may say, okay, these are my ideas. I have 3 different avenues. So I usually have an idea where I want to go with it. And I say, okay, I have these 3 ideas. I want to explore each one of them, pros, cons, whatever. And then let's see if some of these are workable or not. So that kind of stuff. And then it just goes from there to who knows what rabbit holes, really.
Now, have you created custom GPTs so that you don't have to prime it each time for yourself?
I have, and I don't use anybody else's really. I have tried them, but I typically use my own. I have some custom instructions. I don't really use the custom ChatGPT for that reason. I have been in the SEO and digital marketing forever, so I have some workflow GPT, well, one specific one that I use that is effective and speed ups my work. But I typically use custom instructions. But the other thing that I'm doing, and I'm doing this on purpose, is I know that I could create mega prompts and I could create certain specific things, but I want to try to be as natural as possible and have as natural, well, I don't have to try to be, right? I am natural anyway, but I want to give it how I would perhaps talk like any person, right? Because what I'm seeing and hearing from many who are trying to use ChatGPT is that they don't know what to do and they don't know what to prompt, and it's just confusing. So I want to see, without having to come up with markup or any kind of special wording or, be the expert or whatever. I want to really try to figure out if I can naturally get ChatGPT to be good and respond in ways that you would naturally do. And again, this is my hope that us moving forward to GPT-5 and things like that is that we have more of that natural conversation. So it isn't like I have to suddenly learn how to code to be able to communicate with it. So
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because I think from my tests with uploading my written material and trying to get it to emulate my voice, it sounds like it's almost like me, but then with 10% more like $4 words that people don't use in day-to-day life, but they're actually really helpful words because ChatGPT is able to make the connections and it understands language much better than I do, but then it just comes across as not very human. And the joke at Curious Refuge is if you see the word enigmatic, 100% from ChatGPT and not a human, because I've never actually heard a human use that word in day-to-day life.
Negative prompt for enigmatic.
Yes, that's very interesting. I have not had that word yet. I get the typical delve, harness, navigate, empower, and I'm thinking, man, people have really used these words a lot, because if that's what the training data says, and there are a few others like that, unleash, unlock, and I basically say, do not use any of that. And one of the things that my writing style is quite different. I don't usually even use specific, like, the high school writing type of, or college writing paragraphs and things like that. Like I break things up a lot. So what I have to use, one of the words, and it works, is pithy. That is my keyword for, or one of my custom instructions to say pithy. You have to be pithy. And it works.
That's a great tip. Yeah. Because man, I was asking it yesterday for some definitions and it was giving me gigantic paragraphs. And I'm like, whoa,
Yes.
calm down.
Yes. And then the other thing I say is no fluff.
No fluff. Love that.
That's great.
So it's obvious that you've been in marketing for a while with the way, I mean, your posts are so informative and like working with SEO and keyword, that's very obvious. That makes a lot of sense. And so how did you, if you started in marketing, I'm guessing, like, can you give us kind of the background of your work history and what brought you into the world of AI? I would love to hear.
Yes, I have been in the marketing realm for almost 2 decades now, but I've done a lot of different things. And again, my brain is one of those things that just connects different things. And I'm always looking forward and what I can learn more. So it's very natural progression for me to, in any kind of, whether it's from branding to user experience to SEO to all of that, to put it all together and then always see kind of, okay, where is it going next? And then the next thing happens to be this AI. So as soon as it popped up, I was curious. And I did start first with DALL-E as an experimental thing. And the other thing I do along this is I need to feed my creative side of things. So I like to balance the strategy and creative. And I have used obviously other, things from Photoshop to everything else possible. And then I also do my own art and digital art and, whenever I can tinker with stuff. And so I was immediately curious. But when I first started, I don't even remember what DALL-E was, but it was around the summer of 2022, and it just wasn't good enough. And I'm like, okay, we're not there yet. And then I moved to Midjourney. And when Midjourney 4 was released, that's when I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now I'm going to go all in. And I was kind of straddling both the ChatGPT, the conversational AI side, and the Midjourney side, and kind of going together with those. And I thought to myself that, okay, these are the two important things that I need to get into as fast as I can and keep going, because this is where we're going, and then build from there. And I did a bunch of other things too. I don't really have a programming or data science background, and it's not really even my interest. But I did take a machine learning course. I took all the generative AI courses, anything possible, just to kind of quickly get as much comfort as I can in all of that. And I think it's helpful, but it also was very clear that that's not where I want to go. So I want to stay in this creative and strategy type of world. And I just love the exploration, really. I mean, I'm always super curious, and I just like to, dabble with different things and literally just see what can I do and where can I take something. Right?
That's amazing. And I think it's really cool that you were saying, you don't have a background in engineering or data science. And I think that really speaks to where tools are at and where these AI companies are trying to meet people. They're not trying to make these tools inaccessible, or, you have to understand node workflows or some crazy language. Prompting, I guess, is a type of language, but increasingly the ability to customize very specific prompts is going away in lieu of just natural conversation, like we were just saying. But I think that it's really cool. And I think it's really smart and wise for anyone to begin to think about how AI can assist the industry that they're working in, whether it is marketing or medicine or anything in between. Like, it really feels like the moment is now for being able to have some very practical applications in day-to-day work. And I'm actually really curious, as someone, I used to really be deep into SEO and digital marketing, and that was the world I lived in. And we would all have ranking boards in our office about where we were for certain keywords, and like we'd move ourselves up like it was some sort of like tournament bracket. So I'm curious for you, just practically, with some of these clients, like marketing clients that you work with, what are some of the ways that you are integrating AI into that relationship? Is it just for creative work, or are there other use cases that you've found to be helpful?
Right now, and this is one of the things that I'm observing more as a whole too, is that most typical clients are not ready for AI yet. They may have heard about ChatGPT. They may be working a little bit with it or trying to do different things. None of them are doing any creative, but also even if they're creative, they really, it's overwhelming, and they don't really like even understand what to do with it. Now, if I use it, then it's fine, right? But like, they are not at that adoption level yet where it's perhaps necessary, or they don't feel it's necessary. And actually, this is where I feel my space is in this AI realm. Is I want to bring the awareness, and this is with the tutorials and the tips and the knowledge that I'm giving. It's for these people because I feel like we are all in our kind of bubble of this AI enthusiast or AI tech people, nerds, geeks, whatever we are. We are in our bubble still, right? We are early. We are embracing it, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Oh, a new tool, another new tool. Oh, we got 2 new tools every single day, many a day, and it's amazing. But regular people do not care right now, or they don't even know where to start. So I want to bridge that gap using ChatGPT language, because it also likes to bridge gaps all the time. But they don't really care. I can use some of the creative materials that I do in some of the work that I do. I really stay away from ChatGPT written content. I see it a lot more now, even when I evaluate, just some even random websites or whatever, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, yes, no, just no. And that's the potential problem, or it's problematic, right? And Google, just to go a little bit into this SEO world right now, they just had a huge update, and this is literally punishing AI written content, even though it was supposed to be okay from Google's perspective. But in essence, it's punishing bad content, right? I mean, it's always not liked any bad content, and there's a lot of it out there, just garbage, basically. low quality content, I should say. So I always am very cognizant of that, and I try to stay away from that so that clients don't get into trouble, obviously, because that's not what we want. And I've been very successful in all of my SEO that I've done. I wouldn't ever want to do something that can damage some of that stuff. And, again, Google is fickle. Who knows what's going to happen? And also, I recognize that it is going to change. What is going to be going on in a year or two? It's not SEO as we've known it for years and years.
I'm always so curious about whenever I see on Twitter, someone will be like, I did a SEO heist and I took my competitors' keywords and I did all this AI content and we got 10 million extra views a month. And it's like this whole thing. And it doesn't matter whether it's, using AI to hack your marketing or any other growth hack strategy, inevitably, every single time it ends up getting punished. Mm-hmm. And so, people will see these really, I wouldn't say sketchy, but definitely opportunities that don't have the end user in mind, and they'll just take advantage of some sort of small quirk in algorithms, and inevitably, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Google, they end up punishing them, and it hurts you more in the long run. And so I'm always so weary whenever I see posts like that about doing things in a ethically gray way as it relates to these tools.
Totally. Yeah. And one of the other things that I think about when clients or anybody, even online, if somebody asks like, well, now it's just easy, I can just use it myself. Well, one of the things that I caution people, and I said, sure, you can use it, but do you have the SEO background? Do you have the branding background? Do you have the marketing background? Do you have whatever creative background, anything? But if you go to ChatGPT and you copy somebody's prompt that says, for example, like some kind of, I see this all the time, and I actually haven't posted any of this on anywhere, but I want to go into these rants and saying why these are not good because I see this, okay, create this XYZ framework for me as a blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, this is complete garbage because first of all, what is your brand? You can't just take some framework because, people love when you throw out the framework or system or whatever. And yes, you should have systems, but they should work for your brand and your thing, whatever you have, and your company and your voice and all of that stuff that goes into that. And people just take it and then they're like, oh, great, now I have this perfect, client persona or whatever, buyer persona. And it's garbage because you just took something from somewhere and you don't even know what you're doing. So, yeah. I mean, yes, it's going to make people's jobs easier, at least right now, right? If you're already in the business. So if you're already an SEO, it can really help you. If you're already a branding person, it can help you because you know what to ask and you know when it's basically BSing you, right? So it will say, or you can, and I actually correct ChatGPT all the time, like, yeah, no, that is not how it's going, whatever. So it's like, oh, I apologize. Well, yeah.
I'm curious, like, to go back to something you said earlier. You're working with a lot of these clients and they're still not super comfortable adopting maybe the creative side of AI. Do you, in your experience, have like a projection for when those companies may start embracing it more fully, or when their teams will start, learning the creative side of things? I'd be curious if you have like a timeline in which you see folks embracing it more fully in their industry.
Larger companies are starting to embrace it now or trying to figure out how to incorporate things into them. So for example, I may do a workshop on something for the whole team or the whole department. So they are trying to figure things out. It's the smaller, medium-sized businesses that it will take a lot longer. And there are many challenges with that. And also, it comes back to okay, they may be comfortable working in Canva, for example, which perhaps why Canva is adding AI things in their systems as well, right? But it's just impossible. I mean, they're running the business already and then adding on to these things. And yes, it could actually help them, but perhaps they also don't have the budget to hire somebody to do any of the work. So there's going to be, in my opinion, at least in the short run, and maybe for the next couple of years, I don't know, timelines have shrunken so much that I might be totally off too, but I feel it's going to take longer for the smaller and medium-sized businesses, but the larger, mid-sized businesses and obviously the bigger corporations are going after it. some are just going faster and some are just trying to figure out what to do. And, so there's this quite wide range right now that I'm seeing, but still, and I'm hearing this from everybody else, most even large companies, like we're talking size of Google's and Amazon's or whatever, maybe Amazon's a bit different, or at least AWS, but they don't even know what they're doing. And one department doesn't know from the other, and nobody really knows AI. And they're like, I don't know. So even like literally huge companies, and where we think that they know what they're doing, but in reality, everybody's kind of just scrambling, in my opinion anyway. And even developers, Linus, one of our probably friends that you know as well, went to a conference recently, and he just said that he asked this huge room full of developers how many were using AI, and it was barely 10% of all the people, and they were just even dabbling with it. So we are still early, as we keep saying, we are still early.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, we do kind of live within this like bubble. And so it feels like everyone knows this stuff. So when we're doing presentations, it's like interesting to know your audience, right? Because it's like, I don't know, do they know what Midjourney is, or should we explain what an image generating tool is, right? And so, yeah, that's very interesting to hear from your perspective.
Yeah. And Midjourney is actually, so when you ask people what they know ChatGPT, not many people are using it. But then if you ask them what Midjourney is or image generators, they don't. That might be 1 out of 100. And then if you ask them about video generators, it's 0 point whatever percentage. So it's a huge gap.
That's interesting.
And do you feel like, is there, from the perspective of running an agency, how important is it for you to educate folks on AI tools? Like, whenever you commission a new project and start working with a new client now, is there kind of this built-in education period where you're going to talk with them about AI and how it might be used? Or are you just approaching it from a traditional perspective where you're offering a service, like let's say it's writing the copy for a website, and you're going to use AI as a starting point and then, use your own copywriting skills and art direction skills to put together, the landing pages for them? How do you approach it? Like how much disclosure are you giving clients versus, just using it as kind of a creative assistant?
A couple of points. Well, one is, and this is the usual answer for everything, it depends, because that's the reality of most things. Some clients are not ready for it. Number two, I don't really consider myself anything traditional or conventional. People perhaps come to me and my company because they want something that's not the typical. I am thought to be very creative and I say that I live outside the box, really. But I, still look at everything that's out there. So at least I think that my clients know and trust me that I'm always looking forward and seeing what's in their best interest. I will give them as much information as they need. I don't go into this huge spiel about, you need to get into AI or anything like that. I also don't want to scare them, right? And I don't want to overwhelm them, because that's real. So I do always explain what I do and why I do it. I think that that's super important. And I also do that with my AI things that I am sharing out. And even in workshops or anywhere, I say, okay, here's what I'm doing, and this is why. Because I think the why is important behind the things, because even, and especially with this AI adoption and all the implementation that we're doing, not everything makes sense to do, right? Like there are companies, we want to add everything possible. Well, okay, maybe we should actually step back a little bit first and look at if it even makes sense to do that. Yeah. So, that's just those couple of things. And then number three, I am in this weird place of kind of shifting. So I'm not doing even the traditional, I don't write any content. I don't do really any websites or any of the usual digital marketing things. In my opinion, right now, the most important thing to do is to look at what you have. Most people have something, or they may have thousands of blog posts or thousands of pages or a whole bunch of SEO and just a whole mess of, like it's just a ball of 1,000 pieces of a yarn, and you have to start untangling it. And in my opinion, the most important thing that clients who already have these digital assets that they can do right now is to clean it up, because the AI is here, but it's coming for these people, so they have to have their house in order. And 99 point whatever time, I mean, there probably isn't a website or isn't a SEO that is like ever perfect, right? It's just like a utopian world. So there's always something that you can improve and fix and make sure that, yes, if there's low quality stuff, you take it out. Or if you can add something, maybe it is adding some AI creative or whatever. So you're starting this shift to move forward, but it starts with a clean house. You can't just, have a whole mess and then start piling on top of that, because it's not going to work. So that's been my focus lately. But then I'm, purposely shifting more into this AI full time, and then whatever that seems to mean. I mean, other than the education piece, because that is hugely important, because I feel like I can be the perhaps one voice in this, again, bridging the gap from the businesses, professionals, people that don't know yet, but it's coming, right?
How would you encourage someone to clean their house? Like from the start, like if they're like, okay, I hear you, but where do I begin? I'm overwhelmed.
Right. Well, that's why they would hire me, maybe. I don't know. It depends. Again, it depends on how large of a business it is. I usually try to prioritize whether it's a company or a website that has 1,000 pages, maybe they have 1,000 pages and 1,000 blog posts. Well, you start what are the most important pages, right? Or like you have to basically kind of, in my opinion, do an audit and see what are the most important things. And I'm not just talking about like technical, running all errors and anything like that, but just like looking at the bigger, like the 10,000 view, big picture, and saying, okay, here's all that I have. Are these even related? Because there's also things that like somebody might have written, somebody hired somebody to write some articles and they're not even related to anything. And, okay, they need to be out or whatever it is. So it's just a full cleanup, but I always prioritize it by what's the most important thing. And oftentimes it also just means kind of brutally editing or, deleting things that are just so low quality content. It used to be just a few years ago that, we would write these really short articles that we just tried to cram everything else in there so that we would rank, and that's probably not really good anymore. I mean, you don't have to write thousands of words either, but that might not be very effective. So
I'm really curious, before we transition a bit, I want to talk real quick about tools specifically for marketing, like AI tools that you've come across. So are there any tools or resources that you think are very practical for a freelancer or someone that's running an agency that utilize AI?
I mean, I think for everybody, I honestly would say to start with ChatGPT. Like if they're not using ChatGPT yet, they need to be using it, or ChatGPT and Claude. I use both and I keep switching back and forth. I want to see maybe one works better for one thing, or I can maybe combine both. And then working them in such way that, like, I also feel like if you learn what works for you, then you either do the customer directions and whatever, but it starts with the exploration. So if you're not doing anything, you need to start with the exploration. Like before even going into all these other tools, there are certain, plugins or anything that you can add, or even like a very famous Yoast plugin for SEO for WordPress. Like they even have AI writing things, and every WordPress theme now comes with AI things. But again, if you don't really know kind of how this whole thing works, it may hurt you more than it will help you. So I think that the number one, the exploration is important, and then learning yourself, again, instead of taking somebody else's, you learn it and you figure it out what works for you and your agency, whether your creative agency or more traditional digital marketing agency. One of the important things that I think you can do, and again, ChatGPT is fantastic for this, is if you have, for example, even like data for your ads, so data for your campaigns, so whatever, you can just plop it in there and then it'll give you all kinds of scenarios. Now, sure, you can get it from traditional tools, but if you're looking for some little things, so anomalies or patterns, it's fantastic on finding those things. So that's super helpful. But again, at this point, it's not really something that, like, I feel there is maybe a small portion of people who may feel like they're panicking because they should be using it, or they're just again using it because it's there. And many of these writing tools, for example, and it's still not natural. Like, I still feel like, human in the loop is kind of my saying that I use it in my tagline too, because we're still needed here. I mean, we're working together. So it's the human intelligence and the artificial intelligence. Or again, I don't even really like to talk about it as an AI, or the way that I think about it. I think it's the machine learning or the advanced math or the algorithm, because I feel there's still the misperception that, the AI is the robot walking down the street having, like their mind and all like us, right? I mean, again, maybe it's going there, but we're not there yet. So
maybe if they unlock the door where that Chat GPT robot was, we might have that
yes.
that reality soon.
Yeah.
That's really, really helpful. And that's one thing that Shelby and we talk about all the time, is the fact that, what is happening right now in the world of creativity and digital marketing is people's, they're leveling up to the point of being not just in the weeds when it comes to actually creating the thing, but rather they're curators, editors, directors that are picking and choosing and knowing how to plug in certain outputs in the right place. And if you don't know, to your point, where to plug in those outputs and how they can help the overall, whether it's a film you're trying to create, a beautiful story, or to serve a purpose in a digital marketing context. If you don't have that context and that understanding, it's very hard to take the outputs and implement them in a very effective way. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. So I would love to steer the ship a little bit, because I think a lot of folks listening to this podcast, they are a bit more, they're more than likely either freelancers or full-timers working at either a creative studio or a marketing or ad agency. And they probably are more of those nerds and the folks that are a bit more in the weeds, and they're just enthusiasts and they love working on all of these AI projects. And I guarantee that they probably follow you on Twitter. And if they don't, they totally should. So I would love to begin to talk about just creative tools and AI tools, and kind of where you see certain trends going. And I thought, since, we've already talked about ChatGPT and Claude a little bit, maybe we can switch over to image generators. So recently, Midjourney came out with character consistency, which helps to circumvent the process of creating LoRa models or working with RenderNet, which isn't quite there in terms of quality. So I'm curious, over the next few months or next 12 months or so, how do you see things evolving for us whenever we're creating images? Are we going to get consistent products? Are we not going to even have to worry about comfy UI workflows? I'm curious from your perspective, because it seems like you're in the weeds.
Yes, I am. And I'm definitely the Midjourney person / any other tools, but Midjourney has been the biggest thing that I have, spent endless hours on, and think that I have at least some type of expertise in. And, I'm always on the office hours and listening to any kind of, little tidbits that I can, read between the lines and see where things are going. And just having, from that standpoint, from, like, for example, last week in the office hours, David, the founder of Midjourney, who basically does these office hours weekly, which is fantastic. Not very many companies do that. So, well, actually, probably nobody else. So there's that. He didn't really feel like the character consistency is quite there yet. And I can see what he means. It is not perfect, right? And he said that it's better if you try to change the character from, the photo to a different style, a cartoon or whatever. And of course, you can combine these things, but one of the big challenges across the board with all of these tools pretty much is that they're still very complicated to use. So whoever cracks the code of making it as user-friendly and the user experience and interface as simple as possible, again, for the earlier adopters to come in, and even for advanced users. So for example, I use the alpha website for Midjourney right now. I've pretty much moved away from the Discord altogether, except I go back for things like the style tuner for 5.2 or things like that. But I've now found a workflow that works for me on the alpha site, but I'm not using the tools the way that I think that I would be using. So that's perhaps a problem, right? I mean, it's not a problem for me because I can still do it quickly. I can do permutations or whatever, but I don't go back and click the filter and change the thing and go back. I still do the parameters as dash dash and then just pile them on and go fast, because when you're generating a lot of images for whatever reason, and maybe it's just the exploration, or I'm typically looking at what can I get out of it, right? Like, okay, if I use these particular descriptors, where can I then take it from here? So that means that I'm running, the stylized parameter from 0 to 1,000 all in once in permutations. I don't want to type them in every single time, because right now in the website, you'd have to click the filter and then move the lever or the little slider. That would take forever. So speed is important for me. And I think a lot of, in our space, that the workflow speed is important. And one of the things that David has also talked about is that he does recognize that he wants people to be able to be in the flow, and that is important. However, it can be easily disrupted, right? And I think one of the other disruptors is that right now we still have to use several different tools. So then the other thing is that whoever can kind of streamline some of these things will have an advantage and have it such quality that then you can do all that you need for your thing, whether it's you have an e-com site, or you sell something online like that, or you do marketing campaign ads or whatever for social media. So whatever the tool is where you find yourself most comfortable and don't have to jump through a lot of hoops. And yes, perhaps not, stability or comfy UI, it's so complicated. Like, most people are going to just pull their hair out before they even get to the bottom of it. And so if you can make it easier to enter, then you have an advantage. Now, one thing that I am seeing, this is happening a lot, is there will be, and there already are, collaborations. So image generator collaborates with language generator or language model, because they both have something that both can benefit from, and now they can bring it together. So for example, again, as a Midjourney, they're saying that there will be a Midjourney bot that will work in X or Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. So it is coming. It's going to be experimental. We don't really know what it will look like. We don't know if it's going to be in Grok, wherever it is going to be, but you basically will be able to generate Midjourney images inside Twitter.
That, I feel like that will be a new inflection point for AI adoption, because I think just even the small barrier of getting into even more accessible tools like DALL-E inside of ChatGPT is just enough to keep people from exploring AI imagery. So that's going to be huge.
I totally agree. I wanted to share a quick story. So I was testing style reference last week. I was getting a haircut or character reference, the new character consistency feature. But I was getting a haircut, so I was trying to use an image of me to see what it would look like with different hair colors. And it just kept giving me a mustache. And so I have it was so consistent though. We'll have to share a picture, but it's just it was this same character. It didn't really look like me. It just had this mustache on every image. And I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I feel a little offended by this. Because I need to shave. It was so funny. But I agree with you. I'm really enjoying the web version of the alpha Midjourney. I just found that I do feel like I'm flowing a bit more quickly, and I'm having a great time. I don't know. It's been really nice. So.
Yeah. Do you, just out of curiosity, do you use the create on the alpha, or do you just work from your archive? Because I literally do not use create at all. All I do is work from archive.
Yeah, I've done both. Or I'll also work from the Explorer. So I'll see something I really like, right? And use that as well. And I do love that it's it just copies the prompt and then you can adjust it for what you need.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Same thing. You can copy the image, use the image reference, style. Yeah, that's a fantastic feature. And I love that it's so fast to do. But what I found is that I completely skipped the create side of things, because everything that I need is in the archive. And perhaps it's because I run perhaps, several hundred prompts sometimes all at once. So it's quick for me to see it on the archive. And then or if I start from the top and then I just keep going, and it's fast. And if I want to do anything to that image, then I just can quickly update and, rerun it or do something or change something. And I found that is more streamlined for my workflow and keeps me in that flow instead of having to go and look at bigger pictures in the Create.
You know what's funny is when I accidentally go to Create when I'm just trying to search the Explorer. So something about the UX, like I keep clicking into Create and I'm like, oh dang, and so I have to go to the search browser. So that's a little bit of a, frustrating experience, but it's fine.
And with the turbo mode, it's so fast, it may just feel like a search experience, right?
Yeah, sure.
Turbo mode is fast. It's fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been exploring alpha a bit more. I do dance back and forth between Discord, but I think because you do have the ability to input the same codes that we were using in Discord, so the repeater code is essential for me whenever I'm working on my projects, because I'll generate 100 images for every single image that I actually end up using. And so the fact that you actually can still do that in the Create tab is so clutch. And so I've been almost exclusively using the website version. And once they officially roll that out to the world and to everyone, I think our training at Curious Refuge is going to focus on the web version, just because Discord just a little complicated and a little weird to set it up. So
yes, and that is one of the and Midjourney recognizes that it was an easy way to start. It was kind of already community driven in the Discord, but there are so many problems, and I hear it also all the time, because even me, I wasn't on Discord before Midjourney at all, so I had to learn and jump through the hoops to get there. But it is 15 steps. And most people don't want to take those steps, and then let alone try to figure out where to go and what to do. So this definitely eliminates all of that. And now I just thought about it, I'm like, they need to put, now that I thought about having all those parameters for the stylized or whatever, and I usually always use 0, 100, 200, 400, 600, 800, 1,000 or something else. It would be fun if you could add that your own thing, and you would just click a button and it would do it all, because I just copy it, right, and then I just paste it into every single one that I run. So it would be a faster for our enthusiasts to be able to quickly run different, or the same thing for chaos, right? So 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever, so instead of having to go adjust everything. So okay, David.
yeah, hope you're listening. Also, would love to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm constantly amazed by is not only your ability to stay up to date with the news, because there's a lot of people that do that, and that is a full-time job, staying up to date with the news. But what I love about the way that you present yourself online is you actually contextualize the news quite a bit. So a new update will come out, or you'll be exploring a certain concept, and you'll share with other people how they can pull off a certain, design look, an image style, or you'll just explore some sort of new tool that comes out. And so I'm curious for you, maybe just in a practical way, how much time do you spend staying up to date on the news and then contextualizing it for yourself? And then what would your recommendation be for just an everyday person who wants to stay up to date on AI, but doesn't have the ability to make it just their full-time job reading the news and messing around with these tools?
And it is hard because we are getting so many new things every single day. And I do feel overwhelmed as well. So, for everybody else, you're not alone. I mean, we all feel overwhelmed. It's oh my gosh, now we can't, now we got to jump on this and figure it out. And it's also stressful, really. And I try not to jump on every single thing. I try to evaluate what's important. And for example, as of late, I've specifically moved away from all the research papers that are not ready yet. Now, I did jump on the Sora bandwagon as well, but right now I'm over it, right? And actually I hear that again, it is the consensus is we don't even want to see any Sora videos right now because it's not available. So who cares? Give it to us when it's available. Great marketing tactic, really. I mean, it worked really fantastic. But okay, now enough showing the videos. Now we want to actually play with it. Or if it's not ready yet, well, then maybe it was too early because we'll forget about it because there's no million other things that we can look at. So I've completely moved away from, I still kind of see what's coming or what the research is all the way from China and even TikTok, because everybody's creating something, right? So I pay little bit of attention, but I'm not going to let that distract me from what's in front of me. And then I try to base my things that I do with what would be the most helpful for me and for other people, right? Like, again, there's 1,000 tools that we can use, but perhaps only 10 of them are great. Or like even for video, there's many out there and not many of them are great. So of course we have a few of them that are great, but I then want to explore those further. And then while I'm exploring, as I'm doing the exploration, I'm thinking about the steps that people have to take and how does that look like. And perhaps this is because of my marketing background and also just thinking about more logically and also creatively, is I'm trying to look at like what are the bottlenecks or what might be the issue here for somebody, or where they may stop and not actually get past it. Or like, for example, for runway, there are also now a lot of levers and a lot of things to do. And everybody's moving that way because people want more levers, more control. Right. But it also makes it really, really complicated for people to get started. So I try to put myself into the shoes of somebody who is kind of just early going, and then again, explain either or many things like, okay, this is what it is. This is how you can use it. This is why it might be important, or why does it matter? And then, perhaps the pros, cons, whatever. Like I don't shy away from, I try to be, well, no, I just am. I'm very direct, and I kind of call it as I see it. So I don't want to sugarcoat something. If something isn't good enough, I probably won't even talk about it then. And I'll wait and see. But I do more testing than what you see, but not everything gets out because it would be just too overwhelming. And yes, it also overwhelms me, and I need a break at sometimes, but apparently not yet.
Yeah, I think what I like about the content that you share is that you're not sensational whenever you post things. I think I see a lot of, mainly on LinkedIn, but yes, on Twitter as well. Like people will just be like, the first line will just be like, the world just changed. And then you're like, what? The world just changed? And you like log on and they're like, yeah, Midjourney has this like new slider. And you're like, wait, what? Like, that's it?
I cringe. I don't do that. And it makes me, it's like the reason, well, and this I can go to another rant, because of course I also observe the algorithms, right, on different platforms, and LinkedIn is awful, right? Like certain things can go viral on LinkedIn. And I actually I did a test a few years ago how to go viral on LinkedIn, and I went viral just because I figured out the strategy. So it's not difficult, but is it really going to be helping you? That's to be seen, I guess. But it's because those like they're usually the threads like 10 amazing whatever things, and I've also tested this, right? So they unfortunately work. So insane examples like, oh my gosh, the world's going to end or whatever because this is so amazing and beautiful, and I'm thinking it's a slider. Like it's nothing there. And I actually sometimes feel kind of awful because I'm just like, well, here it is, blah, there you go. But the reason why we keep doing it, or many people keep doing it, is because it works, right? They're getting 100,000 views or whatever, so they just keep pushing it. And but then you have to think if that's on brand for you or what your goal is. And if your goal is to get, for example, newsletter subscribers, maybe that's effective. But I mean, I'm all more for the authentic, okay, this is kind of who I am and this is kind of how I operate, and hopefully I can give you something that will help you and actually help you.
I love that. And I was wondering, is it possible for us to just circle back? So I think for a lot of people, they're in your boat. They're like, I love this. I'm also like slightly overwhelmed, but also my interest is just keeping me in the game. So like, I don't feel like I want to take a break just yet. Okay, if you could design, let's say that someone only has 1 hour a day to keep up to date with AI news and to start testing tools because they have a full-time job and a family and all sorts of responsibilities that are keeping them from sitting down and really, doing this in a larger capacity. What would be your advice to them? What resources should they go to, and how should they spend their time?
I think if you just want to follow news, like what is going on in the AI world right now, and get the daily, and if you're willing to get daily news, then in my opinion, your best bet is to subscribe to one of the AI newsletters, and there are several good ones, and all of them have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They all basically give you the same things, right? Because it's all the same news. So meaning you do not have to pick all of them. I mean, it is also a bit overwhelming because it's every single day. So do you want to take that time every day to look through that? Most of them are pretty condensed, so you can probably skim it in 5 minutes and then just leave it if you just want to know that. So, I mean, I subscribe to probably 5 to 10 different newsletters. That's all I do. I skim. It's the same stuff that I see elsewhere as well, of course, like on Twitter or X. So if you are on there on Twitter, certainly that's another great place to keep tabs on things. So just for the news, I would do the newsletter, or if you don't want to do a newsletter, you will see it on Twitter if you're in the AI space. If you're more interested in the creative side of things, I think Twitter is still where it's at, and then YouTube. So if you're more into, you want to know more what's what. TikTok is trying to push some, I mean, it's not really pushing, but there's quite a lot of variety of AI things, I should say, but it's nowhere near, like, you're not, in my opinion, learning from there as you would if you're here for learning purposes. So for that, I think that the newsletter, Twitter, and YouTube are your best buddies. And then LinkedIn, not really. You could get some news there. So basically, if you are more of a LinkedIn person and not Twitter, then you could do that for news. But those would be my go-to. Others, that's just kind of more for fun and art type of things like Instagram and TikTok.
Could you give us, let's say each platform will say Twitter, emails, and YouTube. Could you give us your top 3 accounts that you like to follow or would recommend following for staying up to date?
Yeah, well, YouTube, well, first of all, go follow you guys. Matt Wolf, of course, so he's also a friend, but he has fantastic stuff. He's also very personable. There's he talks about the tools, but he also goes into tools and news, but also goes into tutorials on how to do things and kind of goes more into deep dives. Super personable and friendly, and he's such a cool guy. So I'm definitely, he's, I think, reaching about 600,000 subscribers. So that's fantastic. And he's only been doing it for a little over a year. So if you want to do YouTube, there's a chance.
There's room.
There is plenty of room. Yes. And we're all friendly. We don't bite. So Matt is definitely one of my favorites, but there are certainly others too. And then it just depends on what kind of vibe you go for, right? So, but Matt's definitely my go-to. On newsletter side of things, I think and he's been rated one of the best ones is the Rundown AI, Rowan. But again, most of all the other ones are exactly the same. There's like AI Breakfast, AI Tools Report, and whatever. They're all very, very similar. But the Rowan's is one that I don't miss every day. Like, I look at it, but I also am following him and I have notifications on for him on Twitter because he also posts the news there. So did I really have to also subscribe? Probably not, because I could get it from Twitter. So from news side of things, Twitter is also great for Rowan. Rowan does it on his own account, not on he does the Rundown too, but either way. On Twitter, then it just depends on who you or what your flavor is, right? Because if you are more interested in AI video for Runway or if you want to do Leonardo, or if you want to do Midjourney, okay, if you want to do Midjourney, follow me. But because most of my content is Midjourney. Even when I try to get away from it, I come back to it. Meaning, like, I want to do other things, but then I'm like always like, oh, there's another thing in Midjourney. Now I got to do that too. But it's also like one of the biggest ones. Rob Lennon does fantastic ChatGPT type of copywriting, writing with ChatGPT content. And he has a couple of, his courses are now incorporated in his Discord membership, but highly, highly valuable content, massively valuable content. So I do keep tabs on Rob, also friends. So, I mean, again, it's a small circle. So we have, a pretty close knit community. Heather Cooper does Spaces on Friday, where I'm also there. And then that's actually where oftentimes Matt Wolf and Rob and we all come together and we chat about what's going on in the space. Salma is working on, she's also in the spaces. She is working on product photography studio type of thing for e-com website, e-com brands and companies, which is super interesting, and it should be launching soon. So, and we are also like literally everybody's friends. Like it's a wonderful community, really. And again, we are welcoming to everybody. So, like don't ever, at least from my perspective, like, I'm happy to always chat with everybody, and, my DMs are open, and, like, and if somebody has questions, I'm always happy to help or try to troubleshoot something. So.
And we'll link to all the resources that Alie mentioned below this video. You can find the show notes either on our website or in the YouTube description.
And Alie, this morning I was loving seeing your Easter posts, your bunnies. I'm like, I want to go prompt in Midjourney for some soft pastel bunnies, or like maybe a crocheted bunny.
Yes, that was super fun. I decided to just do that. And actually that stemmed from, just to give you a little bit of other behind the scenes, so how I operate. So I was running this, well, I kind of still am running this Pinterest experiment, because you can easily, so with your AI images, if you wanted to post it on Pinterest and use it as one of your marketing funnels, you can easily get up to 10 million views a month, like, no problem, and fast. So I started this experiment, and I started it before Valentine's Day. So I prompted a lot of Valentine's images. Now I am optimizing them, right? So I am doing SEO on Pinterest, because Pinterest is fantastic for SEO. So, but I'm not driving them anywhere yet. But the idea is that I will drive them to my own website at some point. But that's kind of the idea with the Easter things too, was that, this is now something that I could put on the Pinterest. But so my workflow, so if somebody's interested, if you are a freelancer, or have a small agency or creative agency or whatever, and if you have your own website, and if you don't, you have to have your website, write a post. So literally I am going to put these bunnies onto my website and say 21 Midjourney prompts, and I'm going to optimize that as well. But then I'm going to put all of these bunnies or the Easter pictures to Pinterest, and then I'm going to drive them back to my website. So I'm linking them back. And that's what you need to do well, not need to do, but this is a fantastic other way to drive traffic back to your website for whatever reason. And then they see obviously all the other things that I'm doing. So that is fantastic reason for using Pinterest. Now, would you want to do it just to get 10 million views? I mean, if you're not doing anything with them,
That's amazing. Wow. I'm like really inspired. I'm like, should we be on Pinterest? Because I don't think we're on Pinterest at all.
Honestly.
Also, another big quick Pinterest trip is that, so if you do video, so even if you do your 4-second videos on anywhere, your runway, Pixverse, wherever you do them, they do fantastic on Pinterest. Pinterest likes the short videos. So yes. And of course you could also link back to your YouTube, right?
That's interesting. Pinterest is my personal favorite platform. I find myself like, if I go on a break and I'm just like, I'm going to be off social media, I will still keep Pinterest, because I find it very calming to just like create mood boards. It's very cozy to me.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We always like to end our podcast episode with some rapid fire questions. So Shelby's going to ask you a few questions, and we try to keep it just super concise and just kind of flow, whatever comes top of mind.
Yeah, top of mind. Cool. Well, the first question is, what is your favorite image generator? I think we know.
Yes, it's Midjourney at this point anyway.
And what is your favorite video generator?
Okay, people are gonna hate me because I'm not gonna say Runway. Right now it's Pixverse.
Okay, I love that.
Native 4K. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it looks sharp.
Okay, so we didn't even go into this, but we did learn about you being, let me see what we were, the president of a skydiving equipment manufacturer. So that's interesting. I love to know that. I wish.
Yeah, it's okay. We can go on this little tangent. I've done so many different things. Yeah. So after college, I lived in Florida. Well, I'm originally from Finland, so it's just a quick backstory. I'm originally from Finland, and that's where I learned to skydive. Why, I don't know, because that's not necessarily the best place for it. But everybody was moving to Florida to skydive, right? So I moved to Florida. I ended up working in a skydiving manufacturer. And first I was running the production, which again still is kind of creative because you get to create things and make parachutes and all that kind of stuff. So I ended up just very quickly climbing. I mean, they're not huge things, but I was a skydiving instructor. I was a master rigger, which is I was certified to fix these parachutes and, pack them because, in case it doesn't work, you have your seal on it, whatever. So all that kind of stuff. So I had fun. We went everywhere, jumped everywhere. I've jumped from 727 airplane in Quincy, Illinois, one summer, from many different things. It was super fun, just, a fantastic experience. But I mean, from skydiving to actually working in it. So, yeah. And also I was there teaching too. So, I mean, I think this teaching has always been kind of in my nature to some extent.
You're saying that you've always taken the leap.
Yes, literally.
Yeah. Do you still skydive?
No, I haven't for years. It's funny though, if somebody said, let's go, I'd be like, sure, no problem.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I do. That is a goal. But I'm a little afraid.
It's super
Caleb,
fun.
You want to go?
It really is. Some people say it's the most fun you can do with your clothes on, but I mean, I don't know.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh. Caleb's pretty afraid of heights, so I don't know. Would you ever jump out of an airplane?
I would, yeah. I feel like and I don't know this because I've never skydived, but I feel like after 1,000 feet, it just all blends into just impossibly high. And
exactly that's exactly what I was going to say. You lose if you're standing on the roof of a building, you can have that sensation and have that, oh my gosh. But when you're in the sky thousands and 10,000 feet above, you don't feel it. The most scariest part is getting out of the door of the airplane.
That jump is just
Yeah.
I'm getting nervous talking about it. My palms are sweaty. Yeah, my palms are sweaty right now. Oh man. Okay. So let me think. The last question I want to ask is like, if you were to give someone a gift consistently and it was maybe a book, what would that book be?
I couldn't even think of a single book. And you know why? So I'm going to explain my reasoning why I couldn't just do a single book is because the way that my brain works, so like once I knew you or even knew a little bit about you, or I would find out about you, and then I would figure out what works best for you. Because I feel like I can't just blanket everybody under the same thing, that I want to take you as the individual and where you are into consideration and perhaps give you something that I feel would be the most helpful. And again, that's just perhaps how my brain works, but I'm more interested in, instead of me saying like, oh, here's a great book, I want to try to figure out what's a great book for you, right?
Yeah.
So that's a kind of a long answer, but I think that's the only way. I mean, there's several books that I like, right? But like, I also like the variety. Like I'm exploring everywhere all the time. So
I love that. But that's what makes you so good at what you do, because you're just like, what do you need? Okay. Which is incredible.
I actually have one last question before we wrap up here. So Midjourney Video is currently they're training the model currently, and I know we don't have a definitive timeline, but it seems like it might be sometime in the near future. So I'm curious if you just had to guess, and I know we all love Midjourney; it's our image generator of choice here. Where do you see Midjourney Video in relation to, let's say, Pixverse, Runway, Pika? Do you feel like the quality, because I feel like Midjourney, it feels like the quality needs to be really high. Where does it live? And I guess if we're like putting Sora way up here, even though we don't have access to it, do you feel like it's going to be similar to tools we have now, maybe closer to Sora? What's your just initial thought?
Based on what I'm reading between the lines, and also what David is saying straight out, he's basically saying that it's going to be something that nobody's seen, basically putting it to the Sora level. And that's what I would expect, because it is Midjourney. And the training is from the images, as far as I understand. So, and their quality or their whole system, right, and their models. So it should be. If it's not good, I will be insanely disappointed. And he's basically saying that it is not going to be like any of these other ones out there right now, where he feels like most of them are not good enough. And they are more like they make you have motion sickness, which I have actually felt sometimes when I look at some of the videos. But I understand what it, like, I can picture what he means, and I can see that. So I am expecting, so expectations are high, meaning I'm expecting it to be fantastic. And even, you know, at the level of Sora or whatever, I don't know how it will look like, but he is saying it's not going to be like, don't expect to have the same kind of stuff that everybody else is doing. So I'm hoping that it will be just amazing.
I'm hoping the same thing. And even with Midjourney's video tool, I feel like it doesn't have to have all the same functionality of Sora, you know, generating this 3D map, and like it can create like 60-second shots, even if it's just shot to shot and using Midjourney images to create really good 3D representations of movement. That's enough because of how quick Midjourney is compared to using DALL-E and ChatGPT at this point. And so I imagine that even when Sora comes out, it's going to be a pretty slow experience to get those outputs versus Midjourney, like we've talked about so many times already. You get dozens, hundreds of outputs.
Yeah, and David's idea is that, so where he's going with this whole thing is that it's going into real-time world building, right? So it is video based. And I can't even fathom exactly what that means, because I'm like, what? Yeah, I cannot wrap my head around it exactly, because I'm not in his brain. But if that's where we're going, then that means that the video needs to be generated as we're moving, right? So, or as we're in this world building mode, whatever that looks like. So that's why I also feel like however that will look like, it's not going to be what we're used to or what we have right now, which alone might be a huge bonus, really, or just something different.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're inferring is that we're going to all be wearing like Apple Vision Pros, and we'll just be like, let's change the tree over here and look over here, and that character should be like wearing this. And it's like an animation or a video game pipeline, but for storytelling.
Yeah, I don't want to wear the headset though.
I was going to ask if you tried it.
No, and I mean, we have all the other VR things and whatever, but it doesn't, like, it needs to be like glasses for me to have comfort and be able to use it for a longer period of time. I also don't, I'm a bit hesitant. I mean, I'm already on screen all the time. Yeah. And even in that environment, it's such a different experience that I don't want to I need to go outside more instead of being inside here, right? So.
Yeah.
But it'll put you on the moon. That's like a new version of outside, right?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I'll be just floating around the house.
Well, Alie, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. I really appreciate it. For folks that want to follow you online and just see more of your work, where can they go?
Well, they can go to my website, which is aliejules.com. That's basically, you can find all the other links to everywhere else there. And then on Twitter or X, I know we keep saying Twitter, but okay, it's Twitter. Same thing, Alie Jules. That's pretty much my handle everywhere. Sometimes it's Alie Jules AI, but yeah, you can find me and probably just by my name.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Yes, and I can attest that you do very good SEO, because when you search your name, you pop up in the
yes.
Okay, good.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much for just the service and the content that you offer the community. It's absolutely invaluable, and we can't recommend you enough to people who are looking to contextualize this AI revolution. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.